The Ultimate Warrior from 1975 is a very obscure, very nihilistic, post-apocalyptic action movie directed by none other than Robert Clouse, probably most famous for directing the martial arts movie that did bring martial arts to the mainstream, and that movie was Enter the Dragon. This one's quite different to Enter the Dragon, to say the least. It's set in New York in the year of the futuristic year of 2012, at least futuristic compared to 1975. And the titular Ultimate Warrior is not to be confused with the Ultimate Warrior of WWF fame. The Ultimate Warrior in this movie is played by Yul Brynner. And Yul Brynner was the guy who made your aunt, your mother, your grandmother swoon in The King and I. And he was the guy that freaked the rest of us out in Michael Crichton's Westworld. So the Ultimate Warrior is no doubt Yul Brynner's most obscure role, his most obscure movie. The premise of this one is there's been some sort of plague that's taken out most of humanity. I think it's to do with crops and vegetables and fruits and grain and those sort of things. So most people have starved to death, from what the movie leads us to believe. And it introduces us to a few different communes, I guess you'd say, for want of a better word, located in New York City, in the Big Apple, which is fairly baked by this stage. And these communes are sort of vying for the somewhat limited resources that are left. One of the communes is run by a guy played by Max von Sydow. They're like this whole hippie peacenik commune. They grow their own fruits and vegetables with their own seeds that have somehow miraculously become, I guess you'd say, very hardy towards the epidemic that's swept through the world. They've become immune to these particular fruit, vegetable, legume, grass diseases that took out the rest of the plants, the rest of the crops, and as a consequence, the rest of humanity. So they're growing the basics on the rooftop of their of the building in their commune. The commune's all walled off, of course, much like the one in Mad Max 2. They don't have a petrol refinery inside. They don't have survivors with the charm of Cookie from A Country Practice. But what they do have is a bit of a green thumb, a guy that's very good with growing crops. As I think I said before, he's figured out that there are a few seeds left that do have a kind of natural resistance to whatever convenient plot device type epidemic swept through the rest of the crops that previously sustained humanity. And they're growing things like broad beans and tomatoes and nice and boring things like that are helping them stay afloat. And they do, of course, also go out on foraging missions. We see some of them at the start of the movie. And they're catching pigeons, of all things, in a deserted building. And it's there that we meet our bad guys of the movie. And that's a rival commune. They're holed up in a New York City jail, of all places. They're led by a guy called Carrot. Carrot's not to be confused with Carrot Top. Carrot's just a bad guy with red hair, kind of the maniacal equivalent of George Eastman in Warriors of the Wasteland, or Humongous in Mad Max 2. And or a Morton Joe in Mad Max Fury Road. So Carrot is leading these this gaggle of murderers, rapists and thieves and scavengers, and they're all holed up in the jailhouse. I guess it's the New York City prison, and they're basically ambushing people for their food, and they have their sights on Max von Sydow's compound. So Max von Sydow has a bit of a B plan. He knows that the Big Apple is baked, as it was baked in 2019 after the fall of New York, and he's planning to get his pregnant daughter and a lot of these seeds out and to find an island someplace, much like the protagonists in Day of the Dead at the end of it, and hoping to start afresh. But he does need hired muscle. He's seen what Carrot and his mates are capable of. So one day he sees a gun for hire, or actually more accurately, a knife for hire, in the form of Yul Brynner, the titular Ultimate Warrior, not to be confused with the Ultimate Warrior of WWF. And he's been standing on the side of an upturned car for 2 days, in a very menacing fashion, apparently soliciting for work. Max von Sydow makes him an offer he can't refuse that includes some of the finest Cuban cigars that seem to have survived the whole vegetative holocaust, or whatever it is. And that's basically the setup for the movie. So there's a big lead up to a showdown between Yul Brynner and Carrot, not to be confused with Carrot Top, and quite a few great action sequences. This movie also has a lot of very cool locations and sets. It feels very realistic. It feels very much like it is taking place AB after the bomb, or in this case AE after the epidemic. And I believe it was shot on the Warner Brothers backlot, and it does give it a more epic feel than the $1 million budget would suggest. So this movie's quite an anomaly. It has been largely forgotten for some reason. It's a lot more nihilistic than most post-apocalyptic movies, which is saying something. In fact, when I think about it, this is probably the most nihilistic post-apocalyptic movie aside from The Road. And a lot of the things we take for granted in this movie don't come through, don't come to pass, let us down. And it is quite interesting in that way. It's also interesting in that it's not full of guns like most post-apocalyptic movies are. This one's a bit more realistic, a bit more grounded. A lot of the bad guys, even a lot of the good guys, are armed with just things like knives and bludgeons. There's nary a gun to be seen. There's a random crossbow in the movie, but aside from that, you're not going to see the excesses of gun wranglers in the same way that you see in Mad Max Fury Road or Furiosa. In this one, guns are few and far between, so we see these more primordial, primitive fight scenes that kind of echo Einstein's view of what World War IV would be like. He famously said that World War IV would be fought with sticks and stones, and this movie very much sticks to that ethos. So it's not really one of the best of the post-apocalyptic movies, but it is one of the more interesting. It's one of the more obscure, quite hard to see, but if you can track it down, it is highly recommended. It's good to see Yul Brynner in quite a different role, as with Max von Sydow. I've got no idea how they were able to coax the two of them into this movie, but regardless, they did. And Yul Brynner's suitably stoic. Max von Sydow is suitably clinical, and neither of them are the most sympathetic characters in the world, but I don't think they need to be. And the whole thing does have that nihilistic, hopeless kind of vibe to it, which works really well in the film's favour. And as I said, it is one of the more nihilistic post-apocalyptic movies in this genre, especially one of the more nihilistic of the 1970s as well. And well worth checking out. These movies do seem a lot closer to home these days with everything happening. They used to be a bit of a boy's own fantasy, a boy's own adventure. But I'm sure I'm not the only one that catches myself from time to time wondering if I'll need to grow tomatoes and broad beans and cabbages on the roof of a dilapidated building in downtown Manhattan in this weird post-apocalyptic epidemic landscape with Yul Brynner holding the fort with only a knife to his name. So that is The Ultimate Warrior. That's about all I've got to say about The Ultimate Warrior. Seems to be getting fairly darker earlier than usual these days. And I'm off to enjoy the rest of my evening. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you've seen The Ultimate Warrior, if you have any thoughts, by all means, please let us know in the comments. And otherwise, as always, please like, share and subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Take it easy.